Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. My name is Kara Shirley, your digital news desk host, and I am joined by a pretty big name in the social media and influencer world, Topher or Christopher Townsend, but we're going to call him Topher today. Thank you so much for joining me.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for inviting me out. I like how you say influencer. I've struggled with what title I should have, but I remember in Matthew 5, Jesus said, "You are the salt of the earth and you're the light of the world." So that's how I like to refer to myself when I go places. It's like influencers, what the world like to call me, but Jesus called me the light of the world and salt of the earth, and that's what I'm going to title myself.
I love that. Absolutely love that. So Topher here has, make sure I get this right. You have 1.9 million followers on Facebook, 2.6 million on TikTok.
Right.
And then combined about 1 million on Instagram and YouTube.
300, I think it's 365. Instagram, 160 something on YouTube.
That's 1,000, not just
sorry, 1,000. And then on Spotify, we include my music. I got like 350,000 followers and listeners over there. So I got quite the reach.
You do. Yeah. You really do. And you got a very powerful message that you send out there. Very, very positive. The way that I was introduced to Topher was forever ago. And it was videos of you going up to people, like random people in like Walmart, or we were like, "Hey, I'm going to ask you 3 questions about the Bible. And if you can answer them correctly, I'm giving you $100. And like, I love that. And I started following you. And then when I got to meet you through the phone the other day, I was like, oh my gosh, he's from Mississippi. He's from Philadelphia, from little old Philadelphia, Mississippi. But you didn't grow up there, right?
No. I grew up in Kilmichael, Mississippi, which is also the home of B.B. King, Fannie Lou Hamer. She was a civil rights leader and advocate, and home of Pastor Darius Daniels of Change Church. So we have a lot of big names that have came from that location, and I just continue the legacy. Right now I stay in Philadelphia, Mississippi with my family. That's where my wife is from, and I love it. Since I grew up in a small town, Philadelphia is a little bit bigger. All I had was Dollar General. At least we have a Walmart here. So it works for me. I wish we had some other options, but I work with it. I make it work. Yeah.
So tell me a little bit, what you just gave us a brief look at, but tell us a little bit about your life, how much, or however much you want to divulge, but tell us about you outside of social media.
Yeah, absolutely. Outside of social media, I'm the same guy you see on social media. I know a lot of times people think it's a facade, but no, actually that's who I am. I go to church on a regular basis. I help out where I can. I'm a father to 2 beautiful young girls. I'm a husband to a beautiful wife. I consider myself a very blessed guy, and I try to be a good neighbor in my neighborhood. If I got, especially where we live in the historic district of Philadelphia, so it's a lot of elderly people. So I try my best to encourage them to stay healthy, and just be open and just show them that there are young people that care about this city just as much as they do, and especially Mississippi. I feel like Mississippi gets a bad rep. And it reminds me of John 1:46, where Nathaniel asked Philip, he says, "Nazareth, what good can come from there?" And Philip said, "Come and see." So that's why I invite people to my world when they come to Mississippi. Come and see all the greats that we have. And speaking of greats, I mean, Jamal Roberts out of Meridian, Mississippi, just won the American Idol. And, 22 years since another black guy has won. First one was Rupert Studdard, 2004.
Yeah, I remember that year.
That song.
I remember
that. But it was a great time, and that's what I want people to see. Despite all the negativity that surrounds Mississippi, we really have a great group of individuals, and I just want to shed light on that.
Yeah, I'd actually know Jamal. When I worked at the radio station there, I worked with him for a little while.
Oh, awesome.
He's really, really nice guy. Really nice guy. Very talented. Very, I mean, obviously, very talented. But you talking about on Spotify. You're a rapper as well. You have some songs that have made it pretty big, right?
Yes. So I started rapping when I was 10, and the funny thing about rapping is you have to be good at memorizing words, and you have to be able to enunciate. Only thing I was good at was memorizing. When I was little, I had a speech impediment, and that speech impediment kept me from speaking properly. I think I went to speech class or therapy up until 5th grade.
Mm-hmm.
And I continuously, regardless, pursued my career as a rapper. And to this day, people ask, like, I cannot tell that you have one. And I said, that's just the grace of God over my life, putting him first. Reminds me of Steve Harvey. He had the same thing. He had a stuttering issue, and then he wanted to be a host, and eventually that dream came true. And slowing down is understanding how to work around with God, some of your disabilities, and God allows you to do that. And I'm glad he did that. But yeah, I started rapping when I was 10 and went to all the way to college, did my first showcase at Mississippi State. That was awesome. Still got videos on YouTube back when I went by Young Wiz. I don't want to talk about it. Young Wiz. And that was a time. Went to the military in 2011. And from there, I almost gave up doing music because I felt like I wasn't being successful due to the fact that's not the path God wanted me to go.
Mm-hmm.
But then I realized it was just the fact that I was ignorant of music business, right?
Yeah.
We can blame it on something else, but in reality, it's usually our fault. And plus, I didn't grow up with many resources or mentors or people around me, because Mississippi is not really known for hip hop or rap. It's blues and country and everything else. So I had to learn a lot by watching, and that comes with time and a lot of trial and error. But eventually, I got to the point where God was like, "Nope, this is what I want you to do." And I said, "Okay, I'm going to stick with it." And even when I finished my tour in the military in 2017, I told people I was going to get out and be a rapper, and they was like, "Huh? You're just going to abandon all these benefits?" Trust me, it wasn't just the people at my workplace. It was people back home scratching their head. I said, all I can tell you is God wants me to do this. And I got to take this leap of faith. Like he told Abraham in Genesis 12:1, he says, "Listen, I need you to get away from your kinfolk, from your country, and from your father's house, and go to where I want you to go." And I said, "All right, Lord, I just want to have the Abrahamic faith. I'm going to step out. I'm going to do that." And I did. And I've made more strides and reached a level of success that many people only hope to get to, all from using my voice. The thing that should have been my weakness, God turned into my strength. And that's what I hope many people extract from my story, is that let God into your weakness. Let him use you and watch what happens.
That's right. That's right. So tell me about when, but after Young Wiz, because we won't touch on that, but tell me about your journey on social media. When did you really get started doing social media?
Well, I'm a little bit older. I'm a younger millennial, but I remember MySpace.
Yes. Oh, yes. Look, I had the glittery MySpace page too. Okay.
Oh, you did?
Yes. Yes,
as soon as you get on, you got the music playing. Yeah.
Yep.
So I've been doing and back when I didn't have fast internet, so I didn't have Ethernet growing up, because we still had a dial-up.
Yes. Yeah, that.
Yes. So I had that, and I tried my best to get online to promote my music. So I got more involved with Facebook when I started to promote more of my stuff. Once again, I didn't have the money to pay for anybody, so I had to learn how to do things myself, like develop a website, manage my profiles, anything. Yeah. And so it wasn't until, I would say, 2019 that I got a little bit more focus on doing something on social media. And that was because I was working for Malico Records right here in Jackson, Mississippi. And I want to say shout out to Tommy and my manager, Malik. There's some incredible people that brought me in. I didn't have a degree in digital marketing at all, but I just showed them that I was hungry, and they took a chance on me, and it basically catapulted me to where I am today. It gave me the ability to work with high profile accounts, go behind the scenes, understand how things work. And I just took that same knowledge and applied it to my own profiles. But I was able to, basically around 2019, I didn't want to do TikTok. I'm encouraging everybody, no matter how old you are, TikTok, I'm telling you, it has launched people's careers for the most part, majority of careers lately, whether it's music, eating, ministry, whatever. It has been a phenomenal place. And I just want to encourage anybody, no matter what, it's not just for young kids.
Right.
Okay. So I started, and when I did, I began talking about political stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I tried to be vocal on Facebook from like 2016, 2017, but every time I would say something, I would get crazy vitriol from people. And I'm more of I want to keep the peace type person.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just trying to express an opinion. I'm not trying to, become a target of your hate. And that was my frame of mind at the time. But eventually it got to the point where I said, I got to take a bullet for something. Somebody, especially a younger me, needs to hear what I'm saying, or things will never change. And I said that you can't let the fear of retribution be greater than the promise of restoration. In other words, I'm like, I see what God wants me to do. So I just continue to talk about it. And by the time January 2020 hit, and this is around COVID when it got bad, I had blew up to about 100K followers on TikTok from zero.
Yeah.
And I just continued on that path. And my mom passed away that January, I think the day after Kobe passed, in that January. And my job at Malico, because we used to do watch Lil Run Run, which is a YouTube kids show, and we used to watch that together. And it kind of, I lost the love for it, the zest of it. So I was like, man, I want to do something else. So I ended up leaving Malico around August 2020 and went full-time content creator, never looked back. And that's just kind of how I got my start. And I just continuously built upon that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is awesome. I love that being kind of self-made, self-taught, and really a lot of people and not knocking degrees, because their degrees are good and people going to school is good, but sometimes, like you just said, it's that hunger and that willingness to learn and just get in there and dive in and learn. And it's turned out pretty well for you.
Yeah, pretty well.
Pretty well.
I've even met the president, so
Yeah.
there's that. Who can say that? I didn't even meet the president when I served. Okay,
Yeah.
but I met the president from what I did on social media, and that's the power of it. So yeah, social media is changing the landscape, and influencers are just the way now. I mean, to the point that you're seeing Casanat creating streaming universities and drawing in billions of views. So, like I said, my oldest wants to be an influencer one day. And I'm hoping that through my walk, she can see that you can still be faithful to God, you still walk in your purpose, and you can still uphold your values and morals without compromising. And I know it's tough, and sometimes you go the long route, especially with me in music, because of what I talk about in music, patriotism, conservative values, biblical principles. Because I talk about that stuff and not what's popular, it took me longer to get to where I am today. But I can go to bed at peace at night because I didn't fake it. I was being me the entire time. And there is success to be had if you just stick with it. And that's what I'm hoping that young people, like I said, especially her, she can see.
Yeah.
So I was glad to bring her into the booth today. So, baby girl,
she's over there.
Make sure you pay attention, okay?
Yeah. You watch. Are you watching? You watching? All right, good. Yeah. We're gonna, if it's okay with you, in a little bit before we jump off, we'll bring your little girls over here and introduce them.
If they want to.
If y'all want to.
If y'all want to be on camera.
Y'all think about it, all right?
Okay.
They're sitting over there. So let's talk about your faith is a big part of your social media presence, especially with the videos that you done, going up and asking people questions about the Bible and stuff. But let's talk about your faith. Why is it such a big part of you?
I can't be Topher without my faith at all. I grew up traditionally Christian. Like, my mom didn't go to church, but she made sure that I went. I was an usher at the front, and I made sure people got in, and I sung in the choir, and I also sung in the community male choir as well. So it's just been a big part of my life. And when I went to college, like most people do, when you get out of that environment, you tend to drift a little bit. But it wasn't until I met my wife who kind of, she said, I got a standard. She said, I got a standard. And if you want to be with me, then you got to meet that standard. So instead of me ignoring it, I rose to the standard. And I said, okay, I am a Christian. I need to take this a little bit more serious. And then I did. So I got back in the Bible, and just like watching how God has favored me in so many areas where, just one example, I was supposed to be deployed. And in my so I was a Hebrew linguist in the military.
Wow.
Yeah. So speaking of a person with a speech impediment, I went and learned a whole nother language.
Right.
All right. God
And
is
Hebrew at that.
Hebrew, yes. Name me old. But anyway, so I was supposed to deploy, and I packed up the family and everybody, and somehow along the training, I ended up, or at least they just ended up canceling my deployment. So after moving off base and packing the family, I was like, okay, well, we need to find a new place. So I started searching for a place to stay and a house to rent. And I ran across this one lady, and she basically took a chance on me. She had people who had, I ain't have that great a credit score. I'll be real with you. I was young, but I was faithful and I was honest. And when I applied to get the house, she called me and she said, everything else looks fine except your credit score and stuff here. And she said, what happened? And I told her exactly what happened. I'm like, well, my wife got pregnant and we didn't know she was going to have such a hard time. So she had to end up quitting her job very prematurely. And a lot of the stuff we were living on at the time required both our incomes. So we basically had to drain a lot of our savings at the time. And that got me behind on some things that, otherwise I wouldn't have got behind on. And I remember her telling me that because of my spirit and because of my honesty, she ended up renting the house to us over somebody who had 700 some credit score and everything was squeaky clean, just because of the faith and the honesty she saw in me. So when I understand favor, and that's why I just lean on it. I said, okay, Lord, I'm gonna follow what favor is leading me, regardless of what I'm qualified for or whatever. And everyone thinks about qualification. I'm like, man, the Lord don't care about that. He just want to make sure, are you going to be the person that you pretend to be? Are you gonna have integrity? Are you gonna have a personal character? What are you gonna do? And so that just caused me to continue to build on that and just really trust in him in these hard times. And ever since then, even with my son, the Patriot, it's like every turn where there's a wall, God's like, hey, just go straight through it. If there's a mountain, he says, move it. I told you what to do with it. Stop playing with it. So I stopped playing with it. And the more I walk in my faith, the more confident I am in what he can do, because it ain't by my own ability at all, but it's what he can do. And so I just trust that, and I'm hoping more Christians lean upon the Lord too.
Yeah. I want to talk about one of the videos that was on your TikTok page.
Okay.
And I want to show it's not going to have any sound, but here, hold on a second. Here we go. So this video right here, this one, it got millions and millions of views. Tell us about this right here.
Okay, so this was about 2 months into what I felt like God was saying, go into the community and bless people. And this was, so I took out an advancement in preparation for a tour. And the guy who was managing the tour ended up ghosting me. And so I had the money, but I didn't have no means to do anything. So I went to the Lord. I'm like, okay, Lord, I was going to go on tour and I was going to bring a pastor with me and was going to evangelize at every stop. So what should I do? And he said, go evangelize anyway. And I was like, man, I don't want to go out. I'm not like just walk with the people,
Yeah.
Do you know Christ? I didn't want to do it like that. So he said, what, go around. I remember talking to my guy, 4G Out of Blow, and he's a conservative rapper. And he was doing something similar with, I forget the guy's name, but he was managing another TikTok creator. And I saw how he did it in a way that, he used money, to bring attention to what he was doing. And I wanted to take that to bring attention to God. I said, man, this would be a great way to bring attention to God, because I got the money. So I went out and I said, so what do I do? And then Matthew 4 came to me, where Jesus goes into the wilderness right after he's been baptized. And, and he's challenged by the Holy Spirit, but mostly Satan, right? But Satan asked him 3 questions. And then at the end of 3 questions, Satan walked away.
Yeah.
So it dawned on me and said, okay, 3 questions. One, because TikTok at the time, I think you need to have at least a minute to be monetized. I said 3 questions is enough for where you at least get a minute of content, but also it's not too long where people walk away. But I also felt that if 3 questions turn the devil away, why can't 3 questions turn people to God? And so I said, okay, I'm gonna ask 3 questions. And so I went around, and the first person I did was in Walmart. I started in Walmart, went from Walmart, and they kicked me out.
Did they?
Yes, the local Walmart in Philly, the management said that I couldn't record, which is,
Okay.
once again, that could have been a whole nother legal thing, but
Mm-hmm.
no, they've since changed the tune. But they kicked me out. So then I started going to Val, which we're in the parking lot in front of Val's right here. And so Val's is a local grocery store in Philadelphia, Mississippi. So I went there, and this was like I said, 2 months into me quizzing people, and he was just standing there. I said, hey, my name is Topher. I go around quizzing people about the Bible. So usually before I finish, I say, if I ask you 3 questions, you answer all 3, I give you $100. But I was so shocked by this video because he was the first person before I could do my whole spiel. He stops and says, yes, let's do it. All I said was, hey, I go around quizzing people about the Bible. And he said, oh, yeah, let's do it. I was like, okay. All right. So I had to kind of, gather myself. You can see it in the video. I was like, okay, first question. I asked him the questions, and after it was over with, like he just gave this entire just it was amazing, just I guess narrative about the gospel and his name being written in the book and or on a stone that nobody would know until he get to heaven. And my man just started preaching, and I didn't know what that was going to be. So I ended up posting it. It went viral to the point that people wanted to bless him because he refused to accept the money that I offered at the end. He said, just sow it back into your church. I said, okay. So we ended up raising $30,000 for him. And his name is Mr. Bo Joyner. We raised $30,000 for him. And guess what? WTOK, nobody came and covered this story. You do incredible things, but if it's not negative, a lot of times they just ignore it. But nobody came and covered the story. We did 30K, and his son Hardy, who's in the middle right here, reached out to me and said, hey, I think that's my dad in your video, and he's in Florida. And I said, oh. And then he said, I haven't seen my dad in 3 years.
Oh.
So his first time seeing his dad in 3 years. And I said, okay. So me and him developed a relationship. And I said, come out so we can present the money to him. So I raised money for 3 days off of TikTok and Facebook, and we raised 30K, presented him with a check that next Friday. And once again, he was just praising the Lord. He said he know where it came from. He said, if the Lord can use a donkey, he can use me, which is one of the most quotable phrases from that video. And it has just touched people from around the world. I mean, from Facebook, it went viral. For TikTok, it went viral. Instagram, everywhere I placed that video. And it just reminds me that, the simple things, I feel like a lot of times we want to overcomplicate the gospel, but it's the simple things that's all you need. The gospel is powerful enough in itself. And that's why I love quizzing people, because I'm not doing nothing fantastic, and I'm not asking crazy questions that requires a theology or a degree or anything like that. So I was like, this is good. I can do this. And from there, I started to inspire people from little kids to elderly, and every time people come out and they say Topher, it's not that they know Topher from my political commentary or my music. They know Topher for quizzing people out the Bible, right? Which is pretty awesome.
Yeah,
it's like that's
how I knew who you were.
Yeah. So it's awesome, because now I can understand I'm talking to a fellow believer, and and I know this conversation can be of substance, because I do have one thing about becoming famous and popular is, you can kind of become a little conceited and start to idolize yourself. And I never wanted to be that person. I never want to change. I just wanted to have the influence to help others and bless others. So this being the reason why I'm famous, it couldn't be a better thing for me personally. But yeah, that video, Mr. Bo ended up passing 6 months later after this video.
Oh wow.
To prostate cancer. And to this day, I get a call from my mother-in-law who works at the hospital. She says, hey, Mr. Bo's down here in the emergency room, and Hardy's down here. He said he would like to see you. So I go back down. Hardy's waiting outside, and he says, he's in there. If you want to go ahead and go in there. I go in there, and he's barely awake, and we start talking about the video. I say, you remember? He's like, yeah, I remember. So we just have this great conversation. I end up leaving. And Hardy said that was the only time he talked the entire time in the hospital.
Wow.
The only time he talked is when I came in. I said, why can a random stranger like myself and like Mr. Bo Joyner just develop this relationship. But he was super proud about it. You know, I went to his home going, and he was ecstatic about that event, what it meant to him, that at the end of his life, he still could be used by God and be a blessing to others, you know. So I just want to remind people it's never too late. You know, anytime you're ready, God can use you no matter where you are. Just be willing. Just say, here I am, Lord, you know, send me. And you can be just like Bo Joyner. You can impact the world and leave an impression upon so many people. And I just love this. And I hope one day that somebody would take this story and just make a whole movie about it.
Yeah.
I feel like it'd be a great Lifetime drama or
Yeah.
something like that. You know, just in little old Mississippi, where you think racism is an all-time high. You find this young black guy and an old white guy, and we just love Jesus and we change the world.
Yeah.
You know, so.
Well, let's talk about with you having such a influence on TikTok. You got to go and speak at the White House, wasn't it, or in Washington?
For the Supreme Court thing,
yeah, about the importance of TikTok and keeping it TikTok. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so you know, being and I guess I had to say it to set the stage, right? So being a person that's a veteran, but also a person who's very patriotic, and also a person who voted for Trump. Like, those three things tend to get you counseled, right? Nobody wants nothing to do with your hands off. And I haven't been, you know, scared to talk about it, because it is what it is, just a matter of fact. So when the lawyers reached out to me on Instagram about me being one of the plaintiffs in the case, I was kind of shocked, because I'm like, wait, y'all want me? Like, out of all the creators, y'all want little old me.
Yeah.
Specifically knowing that they're a little bit more liberal, right? I was like, y'all want me? And they said, yeah, we want you. So I said, okay, well, I'll give it a shot. And then they said, well, we got a round of plaintiffs right now. If you make it through the first and second round, whatever, we'll let you know. Somehow I ended up being one of the 8. So I ended up being one of the 8, and I, you know, we went all the way to the Supreme Court. I think it's January 10th, if I'm not mistaken. And we went to the Supreme Court hearing, which I want to say is an amazing experience. And it's crazy that lawyers who practice their entire life never make it to that stage, you know. But I was in there in the presence of, you know, Judge Amy Coney Barrett and all of them, and it was nice, you know, and interesting. Like, security is really tight in there, and you're sitting on benches, and you would think that you've been the plaintiff who would be in the front. No, you wait in the back. it completely different what we see in normal court. But I went there and I spoke on behalf of just creators, you know, pleading with the Biden administration that about the importance of TikTok to so many content creators around the world, especially in the US, especially small business. Like, TikTok has been the catalyst for so many people to earn a living, to support their family, to pursue their dreams. And I just wanted to make sure they understood that as they were making these decisions. And I was just excited to be there. You know, they coach you through it a little bit, but they allow you to, you know, freestyle. And I was just being myself. Like, TikTok was the reason my music blew up. And my first song that blew up was a freestyle I did called 2020. And it blew up in February 2020, where I rapped about voted for Donald Trump, you know, in 2020. So it goes, I forget how it goes. I wish I could remember right now, but it was really short. And that video blew up. It was the first time a video of me actually using my talent as a rapper blew up. And I was like, oh, so there's something to this. And then the next video I did was for Terry Crews. And I started to notice there was a lack of representation in the music industry for people who maybe exhibit conservative values or just had beliefs that was, you know, opposite of what the prevailing message was. And at the time, Terry Crews was catching a lot of flack for his commentary around BLM. So I said, I want to make a song to show him that it's okay to have that point of view, but also that you're not alone. So I made a song called Cruise. Kid you not, I'm playing my video game. You know, of course, we all play video games, right? You know, sorry, that's the generation of gamers. So I'm at the house playing Call of Duty, whatever, with the boys, and I get this text message. And it said, bro, Terry Crews used your song. I said, huh? And I said, I don't know what you mean. So anyway, I go to his page. He has used my song Cruise in a video. He walks out to it and basically and tags me in it. First of all, people are bad at tagging you for content.
Yeah, they are. Yeah.
So I was like, he tagged me on TikTok, he posted to Facebook, tagged me, posted to Twitter, tagged me, and posted to Instagram, and tagged me on every platform, which is important for people to know because multiple platforms mean multiple opportunities for your name and recognition to be there. But he tagged me on every platform, and that song shot to the roof. And then I realized at that moment that if Terry Crews, a A-list celebrity, has recognized my talent, then I know I made it. Like at that point, I was like, okay, yeah, I just got to keep putting the work in. And then the next person was Chris Pratt. And then Chris Pratt got into the debacle because he refused to go to the Marvel interview cast interview that Biden came to. And people say, "Oh, you being MAGA, you know, whatever." He's like, "I just don't want to be involved in politics." So anyway, they called him all kind of stuff. So I made a song called "Everybody Hates Chris," and I did the same thing. I was like, you know, here's a song in support of him, and then he ended up friending me, and we ended up having conversations with Chris Pratt.
Yeah,
because I'm just supporting him in an area where he feel like many people are not supported. And I started, this is my lane. You know, it's already who I am, but people need this voice as well, and people need to know they're not alone. And then my next song that really set the stage was "The Patriot," which ended up getting banned on J6 for some reason. I guess they assumed that it had to do with the riot, which it didn't. The song was released in December 19, 2020. January 6th was 2021, 3 weeks afterwards. But anyway, they banned a song, which we know when you take something away from people, you only make them want it more.
Yeah.
And so we improvised. We started selling physical copies for those that wanted it, and we sold 1,000 physical copies at $20 a piece. So in like a week's time, which was like, yo, this is amazing. And it showed us the importance of it. And then February 6th, well, we got it back on distribution because at the time it was DistroKid, but we got it back with another distributor, Ditto Music, and they didn't complain about it. DistroKid was the only one that did. And then February 6th, it hit #1 on the Billboard for digital rap song sales.
Wow.
#1 on the Billboard charts. Independent artists, like I said, no cussing, no booty shaking, nothing. Just no derogatory nonsense. Just patriotism and Christianity wrapped in one great package, and it ended up #1 song. And I've had Billboard songs ever since then. And that is where I would say my basically my career really took off and established itself as an artist in this industry.
Little old guy from Philadelphia, Mississippi.
Yeah, from Philadelphia. From Kilmichael, currently residing in Philadelphia. But in my bedroom is where I recorded those. I wasn't in a fancy studio. I didn't have any fancy equipment. I had a mic that I had been bought, and I had a DAW that I used that I bought, and I had experience from recording myself, and that's what took me to where I am today.
Wow. That is awesome. It's awesome. And so now here you are, millions of followers later with this huge platform, and just inspiring people all around.
Yes, ma'am.
I want to talk over it real quick again about the video that we watched a second ago. What did you say his name is again?
Mr. Bo Joyner.
Mr. Bo Joyner. And this is the video right here. You guys can check it out on all of his platforms. It's pinned at the top of his Instagram page. But you say that he passed away from prostate cancer. My former radio DJ co-host when I was a DJ in Meridian, he also passed away from prostate cancer. And so I just want to kind of take a second here, since we both have experience with losing someone that meant a lot to us, guys, and make sure you go get your prostate numbers checked. It's a simple blood test. It is a simple blood test, and it is a completely preventable. It's a preventable death if you catch it early enough.
Yes.
Yes. So,
anyway. and there are people who, and my father-in-law, he was diagnosed with that, and and he came out unscathed. He's fine. He's doing great. So there is hope.
Yes.
Just trust in the Lord, and like I said, get your test done and do what the doctors say, but have hope.
Yeah.
That you'll make it out on the other end. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, tell us again, which I know I've told people where they can follow you, but tell us again your platforms where people can go.
So you can follow me on any platform at Topher Town Music, TOPHERTOWN MUSIC. That's TikTok, Facebook, Instagram. X is Topher on X. Really simple. And then YouTube is just Topher Town. Spotify, all my music platforms. Just look up Topher. You'll know it's me. It's a black guy in a red beanie and a red hat. Like you can't mistake that.
Yeah.
And then there's some other Tophers out there, but you'll know my page.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's I just want to encourage anybody that's aspiring to be a creator. Just make it happen. So many people have changed their lives just by turning on the camera. And what I love about how I rose to fame or how I rose to where I am today is I did it before I even had self-confidence, really. Like it was like I haven't always been this size. I got to this size, but I lost over 100 pounds. And so in this video, you can see with Mr. Bo Jordan that I was pushing 300 pounds. Now I'm below a sub 200, and this showed me that I wanted people to love me for me and not for anything vain as my looks and stuff like that. Because sometimes that's why people like you. And as soon as you lose your looks, there go everybody that. And I'm glad that it wasn't my looks. I'm glad it was just my character, or it was my content, which you can always reproduce. And now it's just an added bonus that you can see my neck now. It's just an added bonus. So yeah, and now because I did get in shape, I get to inspire others to take care of the temple.
Yeah.
I run across a lot of, Mississippi per capita has most churches, but we also tend to be a little bit more on the heavier side. And I want to remind people, yes, the church is no longer a building. We are the church, but we still give more reverence to a physical building than our physical bodies. But we got to take care of our bodies. Like we wouldn't go to a church and just trash it. We wouldn't just go throw any type of graffiti on it. Matter of fact, we respect it so much that many people, when they ride past the church, they turn the music down.
Yeah.
But we don't do that for our own bodies, our own temples, where the real Holy Spirit lives. So we just got to be more mindful of that. And I want people, God wants you around for a long time, and whether you believe it or not, so don't let health be the reason that you don't walk in the fullness of what God has for you. Like you can either survive, live, or thrive. There's 3 levels. I didn't survive. When I was young, I was surviving. Then when I got older, I was living, but I'm actually starting to thrive now. And so it's so much better. So much better to thrive. So I want people to understand there are levels to this, and you can get to that thriving level. And one of the ways to do it is if you take care of your body.
I love it. Well, I am so honored that you came on. I actually was a little starstruck, first seeing you, just because I've been following you since before I was ever in front of a camera doing anything. So just seeing you and realizing that you're a Mississippian, you're from Kilmichael, but living in Philadelphia, I had no idea. And it's really such an honor to get to meet you. And I appreciate you coming on and sharing not only about your platform, but the purpose behind your platform with us.
Amen.
I really appreciate that.
I appreciate the invite, Kara. And anytime you need me back on, just let me know. We'll come back up here and, change the world a little bit, give the world a little bit of Jesus. And before I log off, I do want to say this. I feel like it's only appropriate that John 14:6 says, Jesus replied to Thomas and said, I am the way and the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. So if you're trying to get to heaven, guys, there's only one way to do it, and it's through Jesus. And guess what? He's already paid your ticket. You just got to receive the ticket. So accept him to your heart. Follow after him. It's based on his works, not mine. Trust me, his is way better than yours. And then just give your life to him and let him work through you. I'm telling you, life is so much better. Being a person who was kind of stubborn at first to the man that I become today, I choose this life 100 times over if I could. So yeah, definitely see Jesus about what you need.
Awesome. Do you girls, y'all want to come and say hey? Come on over here. Come on over.
Uh-oh.
Come step behind your daddy. Now tell me your name again.
My name is Myra Jays.
Myra Jays. And then we have Miss Little Bit over here.
Come here, Bobby.
Come here, baby.
I got her.
You got her? Yeah. You got the muscles. You pick her up. And this is, what is your name?
Bobby K.
Bobby K. And you have a birthday when?
In In summer.
In summer.
Just say, I'm not going to give you all those details, but just know it's a summer birthday party.
So these beautiful daughters that are here in the studio with us. Thank you guys for coming to and letting your daddy come and talk to me for a minute. Still I'm away from you for a few minutes in the summertime. I appreciate it.
So do y'all like the fact that y'all kind of finally get to see what daddy do? Because y'all just like, daddy always gone, but I won't never see him do nothing. But this is what I do. I go have conversations with some amazing people, and I get to explain how I do what I do because y'all like nice things, huh?
Yes.
Yes.
We always like nice things. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. Make sure you're here at 2:30 for our First Alert weather team, and they'll give you a detailed look at your forecast. And I will see you on Monday again. Topher, thank you so much for coming in. Thank you for sharing your beautiful family with us and your story and your social media platforms and all that.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you once again.
You guys have a great day. Bye.
Goodbye.
Bye.